You're listening to the official Minnesota Wild podcast, presented by Acrisure.
It's Wild Weekly on the Fan.
Pass it from Kaprizov, shoots and scores.
Now here to talk about the Minnesota Wild and the NHL. From the Wild, Kevin Fallness. And from the Fan, Brandon Molesky.
Good evening. Welcome to KFAN Wild Weekly. Brandon Molesky along with Kevin Fallness. Just a couple more weeks left of the regular season for the Minnesota Wild as they hoping to make that march to the playoffs. They lost in a shootout last night by a score of 3-2 in New Jersey. But Kevin, one, great to talk to you as always. And two, pretty big. At least they salvaged that point. They had to rally back twice. Hinostroza with the goal and then Boldy with that goal late. So at this point of the season, with the cushion they have, even just getting that 1 point is huge.
One, welcome back. We missed you last week on KFAN Wild Weekly. And two, I would agree that was a huge point for this team that when we entered the, well, not we because you were on vacation, but when the rest of us in the state of hockey looked at this schedule coming off that 3-game win streak, we were going to Dallas, and then you had the homestand against Vegas, Washington, and now the home and home with the New Jersey Devils. We knew this was going to be a tough stretch, and it ain't over. You still got the two New York teams and Dallas coming up here to finish off the week. But to get 3 out of a possible 10 points, not best case scenario, but they needed that point last night in New Jersey in the worst way possible. It didn't look like it was going to happen. They were down twice in the third period. They rallied both times, and they snuck out the point via the shootout. But incredibly important to salvage something and whatever they could there last night on the Rock.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the last 7 games here of the regular season, Kevin. We're down to 7. We're in April. You got the 2 New York teams tomorrow night and Friday. Both those teams just on the outside of the playoff bubble in the Eastern Conference. Dallas on Sunday. I think we know our history against the Dallas Stars. Now, 2 of the last 4 games against San Jose and Anaheim, you'd like to think you could take care of business in both of those games. But you look at the following weekend, Calgary and Vancouver, basically the 2 teams other than St. Louis, but I'm kind of dismissing St. Louis at this point with how hot they've been, winning 9 in a row. The Calgary and Vancouver, the 2 teams chase you. You'd like to hope, hopefully they got a big enough cushion going into those 2 games where it's not all or nothing in those games. Otherwise, man, those are going to be big games.
Yeah, this is going to be a fantastic finish to the regular season. It has the potential to have some huge fireworks and huge implications depending on what happens here. I mean, the Wild have to take care of business. I mean, they hold their own destiny in their hands, but you can't go on a stretch where you're taking 3 out of a possible 10 points and think that it's just going to take care of itself. Even if you go 500 on this stretch, I think you'll be okay, but still you got to take care of business. And when you get the opportunity, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow night. The Rangers are a hungry team. They've been underachievers the entire season, but you wonder if they're starting to find their spark after what they did to the Sharks over the weekend in San Jose, because that's a talented team. Goes without saying. I mean, they're loaded top to bottom, but they're roughly 500 on home ice. It'll be interesting to see how the Wild and the Rangers both perform tomorrow night at MSG.
Kind of a crazy game. Lots of drama last night in New Jersey. You had, the Wild struggling to score for a good chunk of the game, which we're getting accustomed to seeing with Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek out of the lineup. But Hinostroza gets that great deflection of a goal. They're at 1-1. You're thinking, all right, let's just play our defensive style here, get ourselves to overtime. They have the play that appears to go in the net that's sitting on Gustafsson's back, which, one, his ability to find that thing and then still keep that from out of the net was actually pretty impressive. And you think, oh, man, we got away with that one. And then immediately Brazeau with that awful turnover at the blue line of your own zone. Now you're 2-1 thinking you got to climb uphill again. Foligno jumps in on the forecheck. Boldy gets that goal. Very patient. Great move on his backhand. You get it to overtime. Couple chances in overtime. Looks like the Devils had won in overtime when they score a goal, but they go back on the review, and that thing was just barely offsides. They end up losing the shootout, but a lot of drama in last night's game.
Yeah, the guys in Toronto earned their paycheck last night, no doubt. I still can't believe the Gustafsson thing. Not only that he found it, but the fact that he didn't back his way in across the goal line. I mean, I thought for sure, and I had a better view of it than both Joe and Tom, but the way I saw it, it looked like he backed it right over the goal line. And he, when he's coming out of the goal, I mean, half of his body, including his backside, is behind the goal line. So how he kept that puck out and whatever video review showed him, Apparently he did just that, but he said that he felt it land on him. Bogosian apparently was talking to him and telling him that it was on his back, and he stopped his forward momentum and somehow, some way kept it out.
What are your thoughts on how the Wild are going to perform here down the stretch and potentially into the playoffs? Right, I think it's kind of a hard team to get a feel for because obviously the way it's currently constructed with the guys out of the lineup, you're thinking, man, this team doesn't look like it would have much of a shot in a playoff series, but depending on what you can get out of Kaprizov, depending on what you can get out of Eriksson Ek, who knows? I don't know what their plans are for Zeev Buyum, the defenseman who's just maybe the best defenseman in hockey for the University of Denver, who they're now in the Frozen Four. So it's kind of hard to know what you have coming back, right? Like that, you could get Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek back, but you don't know what versions of them you're going to get.
That's exactly it. That's the wild card. I mean, as good as this team has continued to tread water, those are the wild cards. Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek. How good are they? How healthy are they? And how much can they contribute? Obviously, you take two guys like that off of any roster, and they're going to struggle. The Wild certainly have. You get them back, and I think that's going to be a huge kick in the pants. But what version of them are we getting?
Fortunately, they've been getting a good version of Philip Gustafsson, who's been playing, taking quite the load lately. He had 26 saves last night. Yep. He's been fantastic, giving them a chance in every single game. The Wild continue their New York road trip tomorrow night against the Rangers, Friday night against the Islanders. That'll be a 6 o'clock start tomorrow night right here on the Fan. You'll hear Joe O'Donnell on the call, and you'll hear Joe O'Donnell with us next. Brandon Molesky, Kevin Fallon, this is KFAN Wild Weekly.
Rodin sends it in from center. Gustafsson still in his blue paint. 2:10 to go. A bouncing puck came out in front. The Wild with a chance here. Turning to his back in. He scores! Boldy! Deep past Markstrom. Got to a favorable bounce. And with 2:08 to go, it's 2-2.
Yeah, Matt Boldy helped salvage a point for the Minnesota Wild last night in New Jersey. They lose by a score of 3-2 in a shootout. That was Joe O'Donnell on the call along with Tom Reed. And Joe O'Donnell joins myself and Kevin Fallon right now on KFAN Wild Weekly. Joe, how are you enjoying your extended time in the Big Apple?
It's been nice. Weather's been pretty good. Headed to Manhattan here in a little bit. Overall not too bad so far. And I think, honestly, guys, a couple years ago, Boldy had that buzzer beater in New Jersey, and I think we chatted the next day on Wild Weekly. So, the Wild have been having some success in this building lately in Jersey, and they needed that point bad last night.
That is a good trip. I don't know that New Jersey would be my favorite stop on the NHL circuit, but to go to New York and, like you said, be able to travel around Manhattan, I'm sure we'll get into the hockey. Of course we'll get into the hockey. But just as a sightseer and a guy that likes to travel to different venues, what's the experience like broadcasting from Madison Square Garden from your eyes?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, you know, there's a few places around the circuit that probably never get old, and that's one of them. Just the history there, the tradition, the amount of big events that are there every single year. It's a pretty cool spot.
So we played the highlight of the Matt Boldy goal that tied the game late in the third period last night. Marcus Foligno set up that play, forcing the turnover, and he was elevated to that top line last night, Joe. I think the intention from the coaching staff was, hey, we need somebody who's going to get in on the forecheck a little bit more, force some turnovers, what you did on that last play. How did you feel like he meshed with Rossi and Boldy last night?
I mean, I think as a standalone individual player, this might be the best hockey I've ever seen Marcus Foligno play the last, I don't know how many weeks, and some of that's with, an injury, and that's still not healed. The other day, I didn't notice this live Saturday in St. Paul when he fought Jonathan Kovacevic of the Devils in the first half of the home and home. Somebody told me after the game, if you watch it carefully enough, Kovacevic let Foligno take the tape off his hand before he fought. So obviously he's got something going on with his hand there, but yet still willing to fight, get in on the forecheck, create space for his line mates. And, maybe there's been another stretch or two where he's played better. Maybe he would tell you I'm crazy for thinking that, but he's just been so impactful, such a leader for this team lately. He's really stood out in a time where they need somebody to step up.
And he does. He was driving the puck. He was creating the forecheck. 4-2 bounce off his skates, ends up in the low slot, and Matt Boldy ends up scoring a huge goal to tie that game up and force it past regulation. What have you seen from Boldy here lately? A lot of pressure falls on his shoulders without Kaprizov and Jules Eriksson Ek. Have you felt like he's stood up to the challenge?
I feel like Boldy's kind of a low pulse guy in a good way, right? Like I don't ever see him getting too worked up. Obviously, he scores a big goal last night. You can see the emotion, right? I'm not taking that away from him, but I feel like if there is pressure, if it is a big game, I don't get the sense that he changes much, just from my vantage point. But there is a lot of pressure on him, and ultimately, coming up here, it'll be like the 40th game this season without Kaprizov in the lineup. So the Wild, again, just trying to hang on. They need goals from everybody. They need leadership from everybody. And I think Boldy at times has handled it well. I didn't notice him much Saturday against the Devils. But all it takes is one chance for a guy like that to get going and maybe find a little bit more confidence and put this team on his back for a week or two.
We've also seen Boldy playing the point a little bit on the power play as they've employed 5 forwards out there on the power play. The power play did not look very good last night, but what's your opinion on the 5 forwards power play?
I like it. John Hines just talked about the left shot back there from Boldy, and obviously he's one of the team's best shooters. The one thing from the man advantage I think it's been frustrating at times, and in talking to John Hines when it has struggled, like most power plays, you just got to get the puck to the net. It feels like the Wild haven't had a lot of puck luck at times this season, but one way to get that is to get pucks there, get it through those screens, get it through those defenders, and then try and, retrieve pucks and bang home some rebounds. And honestly, it's one area where Joel Eriksson Ek doesn't get talked enough about, and missing him for the last few weeks has been huge. The other day, John Hines told the TNT broadcast crew, or maybe it was ESPN Plus, one of the national teams was in, and they were asking him about missing Kaprizov, missing Eriksson Ek, and he said it's the puck recoveries on the power play that Eriksson Ek is just a horse at. You think about times last year, guys, where the power play would spend, 90 seconds in the offensive zone. A lot of that is shots, rebounds, blocked shots, and you're winning those foot races and resetting and tiring out the penalty killers. And they just have really missed that with Eriksson Ek out of the lineup lately. So for the power play, just get pucks through the net. Hopefully they get a bounce or two and the rest of this road trip, because, the special teams, you can win that battle. It gives you a good chance to win the game.
Joe, what did you think of the response last night compared to Saturday? I know that I think I was listening to Vinny Hinostroza. I don't know if it was the postgame last night or the pregame leading into it, but he said in the time that he's been here, and now it's been 20-some games, he said Saturday might have been the worst game that he's seen the team play as a whole. I know Monday was a bit of a roller coaster, but what did you think of the response considering how poorly they performed Saturday night in front of their home crowd?
Yeah, I liked what I saw, Kevin. And this team has really done that all year. Every time you're ready to count them out, every time they get blown out, every time there's just a tough loss or an effort that you kind of question a little bit, they seem to respond. They didn't get the 2 points last night, but the way they started that game, I think they caught the Devils off guard a little bit because New Jersey didn't see that same team Saturday in St. Paul. So it was nice to see them really control most of the first period. But again, goal scoring has been such a struggle for the Wild that, after 20 minutes, they're down 1-0 in a period that they largely controlled. So they've got to find a way to limit the easy offense for their opposition. They can't be turning pucks over. They've got to really just play that simple game, stay determined, and try and win these low-scoring games. We've been talking about it for weeks now, but that's their MO right now.
We're talking with Joe O'Donnell, play-by-play voice for the Wild Radio Network. Wild back in action tomorrow night against the New York Rangers. Couple interesting reviews last night. Joe, obviously you had the weird play where the puck's sitting on the back of Philip Gustafsson, and it's basically right at the line. I'm sure half the puck was probably over the line, but couldn't really get a conclusive look there. And then you had the overtime. Looks like the Devils had won in overtime, and then all of a sudden the thing's offsides by probably just like a hair. What was the conversation with you and Tom last night during those 2 interesting reviews?
Yeah, let's hear that conversation, Joe.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I'll interrupt for a second, Brandon.
I was watching, so I apologize if I don't understand the
I'll just say that as much as Joe enjoys Madison Square Garden, I don't think he or Tom enjoy Prudential Center as much. And I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, got it.
Well, look, I learned a very long time ago, very early on in my broadcast career, that I don't even remember who told me, but you're never supposed to complain about your location or your sight lines. And I've called games in a lot of minor league buildings, so I've pretty much seen it all. But, that was kind of a mantra I was told very early on, like, nobody cares. You got to move on. But it's just a situation at Prudential Center where they have this curtain that they would, come down to cover the upper bowl if there's an event that doesn't need the upper bowl. Well, it sits there during every hockey game, and it literally covers 1/3 of the top of the video board. So from our location, you can't see the huge jumbotron except for the bottom 2/3 of it. And then they have a TV monitor in our booth, which is behind us, which doesn't make a lot of sense, and it doesn't even work. So our only option for replays are these TVs that are mounted like in the catwalk that are probably at least 50 to 75 feet away, and they might be like 50 inches. It's hard to tell how big they are because you're so far away from them. So honestly, on those two plays, we just kind of had to let the referees do their thing. We kind of were able to give our best guess, but somebody like Kevin back in the studio has got a better view than us, and he's able to at least get into our ear and say, hey, the puck was here on Gustafson, not there. And so it was a little frustrating to have two big moments like that where really we just didn't have a fair shot at it.
Well, but I will say you guys handled it as best you could, and it was two key moments in the hockey game. But it's just so fun to because where you were given that advice early on in your career, Tom Reed may have been given that advice, but has never followed it. And if something bugs him or Bob Kurtz, it goes from their brain to their mouth in a split second. It's awesome.
Yeah. I will say Kevin got a kick out of it. I'm not going to lie. I was smiling the whole time. I don't want to say grumpy old man from Tom Reed, but he was priceless. And, when something sets him off, he, like Kevin said, he's not afraid to express his opinion. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why I love that man so much. He's so passionate. He cares about his trade. He's such a professional. And if something's not to his liking or not to the standard he believes should be set in the NHL, he's got no problem expressing it here in year whatever 30 it is for him broadcasting games.
Some of my favorite moments, Brandon, and it's happened with Joe. It definitely happened with Bob a couple of times in Nashville and I think Colorado, where your broadcast location is. There's going to be people that stand up in front of you. Yeah. And Tom has no problem that while Joe or Bob are calling the play, he'll take off his headset and say, "Hey, would you sit down?" And so you can totally hear it on air, but it's like in the background. It's maybe four people will pick it up, but it is fantastic moments in broadcasting history.
I've heard some interesting moments off the air during commercial breaks with Paul Allen during Vikings broadcast.
Oh, I bet.
Specifically at Chicago, because they're literally right in front of him.
That's great.
All right, two more questions for Joe O'Donnell, play-by-play voice for the Minnesota Wild. Joe, it seems like the fan base has been looking for clarity on Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek for quite some time. At least they're back skating. They practiced the other day. They're on the trip, though they're not planning to plan the trip. Do we have any idea on what the timeline is for a return for these two?
Well, I believe that Kirill Kaprizov is seeing his surgeon today in New York. That's got to be at some point, I'd imagine, this afternoon. Again, that's just kind of what I've gathered. So don't hold my feet to the fire. But John Hines did say part of the reason he was on this trip was to see the doc. So hopefully whatever the doctor or the surgeon tells him today is, yep, keep on progressing. Things look great. If that's the case, then it's just a countdown. How long does he need to get ready? What's the doctor's advice? So if any Wild fans out there have like the good version of a voodoo doll, we need you to get that out here and hope for the best, that prognosis. As for Eriksson Ek, I know John Hines has ruled him out. This is just my opinion. I just can't see how this guy doesn't play sooner rather than later. That's not his makeup. That's not his mentality. If he's able to skate and he's essentially healed, I just can't see how he doesn't return again sooner rather than later. But that's just me. That's not what they're saying publicly. I just have been around this guy long enough. I think Wild fans know him well enough. I mean, he came back from a broken leg 2 years ago in 3 weeks. Now, it didn't work out. He rebroke it, of course, as we know. But that's his mindset. And so I can't, look, the doctor's got to say okay. The training staff has to say okay. But once they even come close to that, I just feel like number 14 will be back.
All right, so tomorrow night, the Wild in New York to take on the Rangers. Wild, they have a bit of a cushion, 6 points up as we enter play tonight, 6 points up on the Calgary Flames who are on the outside looking in. Of course, the points are incredibly important to the Wild, but how would you like to be the New York Rangers on the outside looking in after having a huge season last year? They're struggling just to make the playoffs. I can't imagine the importance of the points for both teams, especially the Rangers, coming up tomorrow night at MSG.
Yeah, I think tomorrow the Wild are walking into a buzzsaw. The Rangers have been off since Saturday when they blasted the Sharks in San Jose 6-1. It's a long time to be off this late in the season, so I'll be interested to see the start of each team. Are the Rangers rusty a bit? Are they not as dialed in as they should be? Can the Wild maybe take advantage of that? Or is MSG absolutely rocking, and the Wild got to weather the storm early. So that's what I'll be looking for tomorrow night. The reigning President's Trophy champs are on the ropes a bit. And what's kind of unfortunate, just to the Western Conference for a second, is last night the Wild steal that point late. They're feeling good about themselves. I checked the scores. Calgary's down 2-0 in Colorado in the third period. And the Flames rally and win the game in the shootout. So that was a huge look, for the Flames, that's a massive game.
Yep.
For the Wild, that's a tough pill to swallow because you don't gain any ground. Calgary still has 2 games in hand. One of them tonight in Utah. You just got to hope that Utah Hockey Club and their young skilled players can beat Dustin Wolf a few times, and maybe Utah steals that game, and it's not so bad for Minnesota. But that one last night with the Flames rallying, 2 goals from their fourth line in a 30-second span. Calgary's a team that won't go away, man. Those games next week in Western Canada, the Wild in Calgary, in Vancouver, back-to-back, that could pretty well tell the playoff fate of all 3 of those teams.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your time as always. We'll look forward to hearing you on the call tomorrow night in New York.
All right, thanks, guys. See you.
All right, Joe O'Donnell, play-by-play voice for the Wild Radio Network. Kevin, you, Joe, and Tom, you're back at it tomorrow night, 6 o'clock start right here on The Fan.
It'll be great, by the way, also filling in for Paul Allen tomorrow morning, 9 to noon. And amongst the guests, Pat Micheletti for the 11 o'clock hour.
He's available?
Brother Joe's joining us at 11:35, one of the broadcasters for the Rangers. So that's always great radio when you get the Michelettis on there.
Joe is as good as it gets. He was always one of my favorite guests back when I used to host Beyond the Pond. We look forward to hearing you tomorrow morning, 9 to noon, and at 6 o'clock, more Kevin Fallness tomorrow.
Hashtag more me, hashtag mute TV.
All right, he's Fallness. I'm Brandon Molesky. This has been another episode of KFAN Wild Weekly. We'll talk to you next week right here on The Fan. Thanks for listening.
an extraordinary advantage in sports, you need a game plan. For an extraordinary advantage everywhere else, all you need is Acrisure. With a high-tech human approach to insurance, cybersecurity, and more, Acrisure helps you take care of what you care about. That makes winning easy. See what Acrisure's extraordinary advantage can do for you at Acrisure.com.